What if there was a way forward in life that was filled with ease, empowerment, and a sense of direction? I'm Debbie Rosenfeld, personal empowerment mentor and guide, and you're listening to Elevated Embodiment, a way to calm the chaos in life by taking radical accountability for where you are. Good morning, everyone. This morning I am feeling grounded, purposeful, and full of awareness, the sacredness and the vulnerabilities of our lives. We have the pleasure to hear about an experience, a story of deep loss through a lens of when we don't allow ourselves to embody grace, right when we are in the rawness of grief and loss. Karen, welcome. I am grateful that you are here and willing to share your story with my audience. I think it's really impactful and important for so many to hear this. So, welcome. Can you share a little bit about yourself?
Yes. Hi, Debbie. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm Karen Sarmento. I am a mom to a now 18-year-old boy and a nurse practitioner by trade. Been a nurse practitioner for more than 18 years. And then through a series of challenges in my personal life, I went down a personal development journey and became a certified coach and mindset mentor.
That's awesome. What I would love for you to share here is your story because we had a conversation probably about 10 days ago, and you shared with me your story, which I had no idea. So, something else I want to share with everyone is Karen and I are study buddies. And we study early in the morning. It's 5 a.m. here where I live in Edmonds. And what time is it where you are, Karen? How many hours difference?
I'm lucky it's actually 8 a.m. when we're studying on my end.
Okay, so it's a 3 hour difference, but let me tell you, that time has been quite powerful for all of us, for you and I, but also the other group of people that are in our study group. So, and when we met and just, talked and you shared a little bit about your story, I said, "Oh, Karen, your story needs to be shared." So can you just start off by sharing a little bit about your life and your significant other, your son? Just share with us your journey of that you actually experienced a while ago.
Yes. So it's interesting because, yes, we'd been studying all that time. And then, like you said, about 10 days ago, we had what turned out to be such a powerful conversation because we got to know a little more about each other's stories, which when I reflected upon it, it was like, wow. So from the beginning, I had just kind of a normal life, a normal upbringing. My parents were married. It just was such a normal life. I graduated high school, went on to college, got my nursing degree, went on for my master's, kind of did all the right things, all the normal things that were expected. I mean, in retrospect, probably wasn't listening to my heart a lot of the time, but did what was the next normal thing to do or what was expected. So life for me was very predictable and I never faced much adversity. I'd never really faced any loss in my life. And then my son, who is 18 years old now, when he was 8, his father passed away very unexpectedly in an accident. And it just really turned my world upside down. And I really, at that time, I had zero coping skills. I had no ability to even process any of that in a healthy way. So I
Yeah.
didn't.
So why don't you share a little bit about Alan
Yes.
and how you guys met and how your son came to be and what day-to-day life looked like for you.
Such a great question. It makes me smile as I'm answering it because Alan and I were set up on a blind date, one that we were both resistant to for a long time. And it must have been the right timing because we both said, you know what, all right, I'll meet him. He's all right, I'll meet her. Whatever, that's fine. We'll go out. And we literally, when you talk about love at first sight, I saw his face and we both smiled. It was like, oh my God, this is going to be all right. And we were almost
That's
inseparable.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. And then, so we had Spencer, it was about 3 years later. Now, Alan had 3 children from a previous marriage, 3 amazing, amazing children, and they're all doing well and they're all amazing. They're great siblings to Spencer, and it's really beautiful how it ended up being in the end. So day-to-day life was blending the families, and
Mhm.
when Spencer was born, gosh, that was another wave of my life that was new. I mean, being a mom and going back to work and balancing that and balancing the families, and it was a busy life, and I think we just kind of took it for granted, the
Yeah.
comings and goings and the going to work and coming home and dinner and sports and whatever we were doing. It was a busy life, and I don't think we gave it much thought or,
Mm.
or appreciation for that matter.
Yeah. So
So I think
can you lead us up to that day, the day that you got a phone call?
yes, I can remember that morning like it was yesterday. It was a Saturday morning. Alan's 3 children from his previous marriage were not with us that weekend. They were with us every other weekend. So they were not with us that weekend. So it was just myself, Spencer, and Alan on that Saturday morning. And Alan was going to leave for work. He was going to put in a half day at the garage. He ran numerous businesses. He was the neatest guy. He did so many different things and he was always had his hands in something, but he had a garage and he also had a dumpster business and a lot of a trucking business and did a lot of the work himself. So that morning, Spence and I were sitting at the counter. Spencer's my son. We were sitting at the counter, and Alan said to him, Spence, why don't you come to work with dad? And he said, no, I'm not going to work with you this morning. I'm going to stay with mom. We're going to bring the cat to the vet. And he loved his cat. His name was Grandpa. So he wasn't
I
going
love
with it.
that.
So Alan left for work. Spencer stayed with me and he left. And then shortly after, maybe an hour or so later, Spencer and I left to go to the vet. And it was just like business as usual. But on the way to the vet, I got a call that there had been an accident. And Alan had been working on a truck and the truck fell on him. So I
Mm.
thought, oh my gosh,
Oh my
I
gosh.
didn't really know the magnitude or the seriousness of it. However, it sounded horrific.
Yeah.
I quickly took a turn to my mom's house versus the vet, and I dropped Spencer off at the vet. I mean, I dropped Spencer off at my mom's, and I went directly to the hospital. They didn't bring him to the local hospital. They brought him to the trauma center in the next neighboring state. So I knew it wasn't good. But when I got there, he was awake. He was talking, and he had sustained some pretty bad injuries to his leg. And but he was alive and he was awake and able to speak and like, oh, okay,
Thank
everything's
God. Yeah.
yeah, everything's going to be okay, and whatever we need to do, we're good with. We'll get through this. And quickly learned that the injuries to his leg were very severe and he needed to go into surgery and to repair some severe damage. And they took him into surgery from the emergency room, so very pretty quickly. And then when he came out from surgery, he was had a breathing tube. So that was the last I was able to speak to him was when he went in. Came out, he was on the breathing machine, and he was responsive, so we could communicate through squeezing his hand. But that was a Saturday. By Saturday into Sunday, he was kind of declining blood pressure wise. Everything was just kind of unstable. And that was Sunday, and then Sunday night into Monday. Similarly, his kidneys were failing. Everything was just kind of declining slowly. And they felt it was from the decompensation of the leg and bleeding and lots of different issues, vascular issues. So on Monday morning, I hadn't left the hospital since Saturday morning. So I was encouraged to leave to go see Spencer, that he'd been with my parents, needed to see me, and I needed to see him. So I said, let me go
Yeah.
home, I'll get a few things, go see Spencer, and then I'll come back. And he passed while I was gone.
Oh, I am so sorry, Karen.
Yeah. That was the news I got when I came back.
Yeah, I am so, so sorry. That just hits the heart. Mm. So during that time in the hospital, how were you feeling through all of that?
I was in such denial. I'm a medical person. I worked in critical care for years. I'd been a nurse for many years before becoming a nurse practitioner. My specialty is cardiology. I've taken care of many critically ill patients,
Yeah.
and I did not see it. I didn't see it to that level. They were talking about dialysis, and had I now in retrospect, had I not been, like, if I was more far removed and it was somebody else, I would have seen the writing on the wall, but I just did not see it at all. I was holding his hand constantly, just saying, whatever this is, we will get through it. We
Through
will get
it.
through it. Yep.
Well,
Whatever
and
we,
you were on the other side. You were on the other side. Normally you're caring and talking to, the family, but you were on the other side of this. So how can we learn to, or even switch off, our own personal feelings? We can't because we're in the thick of it.
Mhm.
We're in the thick of it.
Yes. And I really
Mm,
believed whatever this is, we were starting, there was talk of needing to remove the leg. And Alan being such a proud, hardworking, old school, independent man, I mean, in retrospect, would not have wanted some to live like that. But I just kept saying, no matter what, I'll always take care of you. Oh, I'm a nurse, you'll be in good
yeah.
hands.
Yes.
So I was there talking to him. I was day and night just by the bedside, and yeah, just didn't see that coming.
Yeah. So hard. So when you got back to the hospital after you were notified he died, then what? What what transpired?
My gosh. My dad was there, my brother, my sister, Alan's family, the kids. It was just very emotional. But what stands out is when it was time for everybody to start going home and everybody had cleared, and I was sitting with Alan and his body, his physical body. And I just remember not wanting to leave,
Yeah. Yeah.
just not wanting to leave there.
That's normal. So you want to hold on to his energy, his
And
life.
yeah, I was kissing his forehead, I was holding his hands, and my dad coming over and saying it was time to go.
Mm,
And I remember not wanting to leave.
yeah. Yeah, because it makes it real that this is
Mm.
my gosh.
My brother drove me home, and it was the quietest ride home ever. I just remember looking out the window and just that was it, just driving home, like, didn't even feel real.
Exactly. It's that question that we tend to ask ourselves, is this really happening?
Mhm.
Because it's such a surreal moment that it's like, no, we can't. Wait, this cannot be happening. Question. Were
Mm.
you and Alan married?
We were not. Oh, so I know it's such an interesting question because I always referred to him as my husband, and it felt like he was, but
Yes, of
legally,
course. Yeah.
legally we
Yeah.
were not married, which as the next days would unfold, yeah, became a critical had a big impact on how everything unfolded from there as well.
That's one of the reasons why I think this story is so powerful is for you to share your journey with this because as when I have served out in our community and when and found out that the individual that died was not their partner, their spouse, their, if you will, legal spouse. Still, it could be still a spiritual spouse. So you had a partnership. That's you, he's your companion. But when we find out that they're not married, it's like, unfortunately, there are no rights for those who are not married. It's like, it feels awful. It's an awful feeling, but it's like, oh, well, then we need to speak to the next of kin. Well, wait a second here. I am the next of kin, but in our world, it's what's classified as what's legal, which I
Mm.
think is so, so unfortunate because you had spent 10 years, right?
Now it had been 11.
11
uh,
years. Okay. So share with me that story of how decisions had to be made and how were you included? And yeah, if you could wouldn't mind please sharing.
yes. So it's so funny that you asked that question and then that you also just said that you would come across that as you would is it through your ministering that you would
Was the as a chaplain through South County Fire.
yeah, it's interesting to hear that other people encountered this as well because you instantly feel like it diminishes what was so important.
Yes.
Mm,
So precious in your life.
yes, and then it's instantly dismissed. Like, oh, you weren't married. Oh, we thought this was a big deal. We thought you were important. Oh, we thought we it makes it instantly feel yeah diminished and makes you feel small or like you're not important in the process.
And very vulnerable.
Yes, very
Ve-
vulnerable.
Very vulnerable because it's like your heart has been already taken away, right?
Mhm.
Through the death. And now again, by being diminished, by being pushed away and saying, sorry, because you're not legally married, you don't have any rights to make any decisions when it comes to his service or s- so how did you handle that? How did that come through for you?
Yeah, so that piece actually unfolded okay because I was actually in such a fog that Alan's family certainly stepped up and they're very close family anyway and did make a lot of the arrangements and all the and they took me along for the for the ride because I was in a quite a bit of a fog, but I did go to the meetings and the planning of things and played a part in it. Legally, I was quite on the periphery. I certainly wasn't you didn't feel like you had that. You weren't signing, you weren't making
That
decisions.
authority. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and you weren't seen as such. I was treated with the respect of coming along and making decisions with them, but there was that part where you feel small or less than, and but yes, they did allow me to come along and participate and make some of the choices where whether it be the music and the church and all those details. And part of me was in such a fog, I didn't really care. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
I
did come
get
along.
that.
Yeah. And maybe it worked out well in that sense because I don't know if I would have had the strength to be that person. I
Yeah.
guess I would. Yeah, in
Yeah.
retrospect.
Yeah. Well, and Spencer, where was Spencer
Mm,
in all of this?
Spencer was with my parents while Alan was in the hospital, and then we had picked him up that night. And actually, everybody went back to Alan's sister's home, and we had picked up Spencer to come back there. And then I came home here to my home with Spencer. My brother
Mhm.
had brought us, and my mom was here waiting,
Oh,
and
good.
she spent the night. But it was like, no, you don't have to stay. We're fine. She was like, no, I'm staying. So, yeah, I think I was just in such a
Their little angel at the time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
An odd state of just being in such it's so surreal. Mm.
Yeah. And so so much more had to be unfolded because the home you were living in,
Mhm.
was that Alan's home?
Yes. Yep. So this home was the family home. So now throw in on top of this, I was drinking. So what was now in retrospect already creeping in as a problem was now escalating because
Yeah.
I just had no coping skills
Yeah.
whatsoever. Turns out in life in general, and now throw this loss and this huge hit to my world, that became my coping mechanism. So, on top of not being married, not having any authority, living in their family home, and now I'm losing my credibility because
Yeah.
I've checked out. It was incredibly stressful.
Yeah.
And I didn't have the skills to communicate the need or any of my needs for that matter, financial, mentally, spiritually, physically. I had just basically checked out, other than with Spencer and getting him to school and trying to show up to the best of my ability for him.
Yeah.
I think I had checked out in all other areas of my life.
Well, just like you said just a bit ago, your world had been turned upside down.
Mm.
How does one navigate with grace when your world has been turned upside down? We
Mhm.
don't. So life is harsh.
Yeah, it felt very harsh. And I felt so, you used the word vulnerable before, and that's perfect because I began to feel very weak and very small. And I think my confidence just began to diminish, leading to a series of bad decisions and worsening behavior and less coping skills and less, and showing up in a way that was not, yeah, not who I wanted to be,
Yeah.
not who I ever was. Like, wow,
Yeah.
this is me. Though it took a while for me to realize that it wasn't me.
Yeah. So share with me and all of us,
Mm,
how long did that continue?
I would say for close to 3 years that I was just not showing up in a meaningful, present way.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Did you seek out grief counseling or somebody to talk to just to allow yourself to process all that you were feeling and experiencing and just noticing?
I did. I did. I don't think I was as invested in it at first. It was more like people said suggesting, "Oh, I know of somebody you should talk to," or "Why don't you do X, Y, and Z?" Or "How about if you seek help here?" And I would, and it would kind of be good at first, and then I would kinda it would fizzle, and I would be less and less invested in it and eventually be right back to square one and checked
Yeah.
out again.
Yeah. Well, it's like, we humans, because my belief is we are spiritual beings learning how to be human, but we humans tend to step around people when we see somebody struggling or when we see or know someone is grieving and we're afraid to either say their name, right? Because we're going to upset you and we don't want to upset you. However, talking about Alan is so critical, so important for both of you, but having a space, a safe space to be able to share what you're experiencing and feeling. But then when we suggest, right, we suggest, well, you should try this or you should try that. It's like that surface, right? That surface of, well, I think I see that you need some help, but I don't want to step on that. So I'll just suggest And so the question that's going through my mind right now, and it's not necessarily for you to answer, and if you have a thought, that's great to share, but how do we support someone that we see is really, really struggling, but not necessarily get in their business, yet come from a loving heart and saying, I really see that you just need some love and support right now. And this is what I'm seeing and noticing. The whole thing is we have to be ready to
Mm.
hear it and to want to hear it. But I just also wanted to speak to that because that's true what we do in our society. And it's until our really close, close friends or family sees that we're really struggling and we need support or just help. But it's not to fix you. It's not to fix anything. It's just to say, I see this person that I love is really struggling and they've just been through a major tragedy in their world where their world was turned upside down. So I don't know, that's just on the top of my mind right now. But how did you get the support that you needed?
Yeah. I think you're so accurate in that people want to help. They see that there's a problem, but they don't want to be too intrusive. And yet there's also a little bit of a denial, like of as to how serious the problem is. So it's
Yeah.
like, oh, is everything okay? And of course, oh yeah, no, I'm good. Oh, okay, just checking. And that would be some of the conversations, or oh, we
Yeah.
haven't heard from you in a couple days. Just is everything okay? Yep. Oh, I'm good, just busy. Oh, good, okay. Oh, I'm glad. And then,
Yeah.
life goes on.
Yeah.
But and it's all everybody means well, and I think, like you said, they don't even know how to have an impact on it. What ended up happening, so now we're approximately 3 years into all of this. I came home from work one day and a lot of cars in the driveway, and like, what is going on here? Coming home to my house, and when I went inside, my mom was there, my dad, my brother, my sister-in-law, and then on Alan's side of the family, his sisters, a family friend. Like, what is going on? And then there was also this man there that they had hired to hold an intervention for me. And I felt a little defensive at first,
Of
like,
course.
yeah, I said, "Oh, okay. So, how's this supposed to work? Or do I like stand in the middle of the circle? Where is it that you'd like me to be?" But it was like with a little bit of, little dismay, a little resistance.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
but this ended up being the turning point. They literally went around the room, and each person particularly stands out with someone like my brother who's very, very soft spoken and funny as they come, but was so serious and said, "You're just not yourself anymore. You're just not there anymore."
Yeah.
And somebody else commenting that you're just not present for Spencer anymore. And I was just taking in each person's account of what they were seeing. And it was so sincere and so hard to hear, but it was so true. I couldn't deny any of it. And I was just a shell of who I used to be and who I was capable of being. And to hear all these people in my life that cared about me and cared about Spencer, to take the time and organize this and to hear all this. So
Well,
I said,
and
"Go ahead, no,
go
you
ahead.
go."
No, I was just gonna say, hear that they saw that you were lost,
Mhm.
felt lost, and you didn't know how to navigate through the death of your partner, the love of your life. And it's just like you were managing life.
Yeah, barely,
Mm.
barely.
Yeah.
You don't even know that I was in
Yeah.
looking.
Yeah. I apologize for stepping in. So go ahead.
That's okay. If you get that thought, you have to you have to
Yeah.
get it out while it's there. So I said, okay, I will commit to getting some help and I will get the help I need. I appreciate all this. And they said, well, we've made arrangements for you to go away for ideally a month to a place in Arizona that we've looked into and researched fully. And the guy that runs the intervention, it's top of the line, and they're expecting you. And you can get on a plane tomorrow and go. And it was like, oh, I said, no, I can't do that. I'm working tomorrow and that's not an option. And I came up with every excuse on the Spencer's got school. And no, this is, I got bills that are a month need to be taken care of. I can't just get on a plane. I don't just get on a plane and go away. It doesn't work that way. And it was like dead silence. Like, no, you do. That's what's going to happen. And that's what you need to do. And there's nothing more important than you doing that.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
Wow. 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 That's pure love right there. And a
It
kick in the butt.
was.
A kick in the butt too. Yeah.
Yep. They were not taking no for an answer. So when I said, no, I've got to, I think what I'd like to do is I would like to do this all outpatient. And I think I could go to, I said, a certain hospital that's local and they have an outpatient program. I'll go there. And they're all looking at, and the guy that runs the intervention is shaking his head. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. So you're gonna go there. Okay. And what are you gonna do when you come home at night? Or, how's that looking for you? What do you see happening? And I had it all, oh well, yeah, no, this is gonna be different. And it's like more crickets, just silence, everybody looking at me. And it was like, wow, this did get really bad, I guess. It was like that moment of they're not joking. I've really made a mess of my life. And and I had. And it was like that moment of, gosh, Spencer's not here right now because somebody else picked him up so they could, it was his uncle is a great person, but he's not home right now because they're holding an intervention for me because I'm a mess. And I was. I was
Yeah.
a mess.
Yeah.
Hard
Yeah.
realization to come to. But
Yeah.
I agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was that? So the next day you hopped on the plane?
Mhm. I started packing that night. Most of the people went home. My sister, my mom, and dad stayed. And my sister said something like, well, other than that, how was the play, Mrs. Lincoln? And we started to laugh. I said, wow, what a mess. Wow, that little joke will go down in history. So whenever we deal with something stressful, we say, oh, other than that, how was the play, Mrs. Lincoln? And we started laughing. And she said, it's going to be okay. Everybody will take care of Spencer. And
Yeah.
he came home and yeah, I told him. And yeah, that quickly it happened. The man that held the intervention actually stayed on the phone with me that night till like 3 o'clock in the morning. And the plane, I had to leave on the flight very early in the morning. So he said, oftentimes it's that between 3 and 5 a.m. window, people check out before. He said,
Yes.
but I was picking you up at 5. They had transportation arranged. And he said, I want to stay on the phone. And he had been through this himself. So he said,
Mm.
stay on the phone and just get you through it because I want you to go and I want you to do well. And I still stay in touch with that man. Amazing experience in retrospect. And I did. I stayed on the phone. I'm like, I don't get it. Like, do you want me to let you go? I wasn't sure why he was on the phone.
Yeah. Yeah. Another angel for you.
Yep.
Yeah.
He said, I'm not getting off the phone. That's the idea. I'm going to, oh, so you're staying on the phone till my ride gets here. Okay. Okay. Okay, so that's it. All right, I'm staying on the phone. And I did. I got on the plane. I had a journal with me and I started journaling on the plane. And from that day forward, that was the turning point.
Mm.
I got
So
sober.
beautiful.
It was. I got sober and I came back different. I was
Yeah.
present again.
you're present again to
Mhm.
be able to care for yourself, but also for Spencer.
Oh, when I saw him in the airport, him and my mom and dad picked me up at the airport, and I saw his little body. Oh my gosh, I can't. He was just, I gave him a hug, and it was like,
You felt
he's
home. You felt like you were home. Mm.
did. And I felt like then at that point, you're dealing with all the guilt. You
Yes.
feel another piece to process
Yes.
the
Yeah.
guilt. What have I done to him? What do we need to do to repair this?
Yeah. And that is all stemming from the loss, just the loss. So, loss shows up, grief shows up in so many different ways of what was hoped for, what was, like you said in the very beginning of your story, a normal day to day life. You guys would get up and you would go to do your thing, take care of each other, cook dinner, take Spencer to school, pick him up. But a couple things I want to just point out because it came to mind. There was two times that you mentioned about denial. And that is the first time when you mentioned you were in the hospital and you were feeling like, and it wasn't necessarily that was very conscious denial, but it's just like, no, everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to work out. Whatever we need to do, Alan, to take care of you, we will do it,
Mhm.
and not recognize the severity. And then here during the intervention of, oh, not being able to recognize what was really going on for you. And denial is so big in our world that it's like, but it also is a coping mechanism. And that's what I want to point out. Denial is a coping mechanism to help our brain, to help our minds, to help our bodies to just navigate. And what do I do with this? Where do I go with this? Is this really happening? That's just part of it. And so I see this whole journey of yours, Karen, as just the sacredness of grief and the vulnerability of grief after loss and unexpected loss, tragic loss. So, what I want to also ask is how has it been for you? So, you came back home and you and Spencer, and then just working out like your home because it was Alan's, in legal terms, it was Alan's home, even though it was all of your home. But there's still the legality behind that. And so it just, can you touch a little bit base on just navigating through that part of having to, well, how do you do this after your loved one died and then it's not legally your home, but you need to have a home for your son to grow up in. And so how did you navigate through that?
Yeah. I was fortunate in that Alan's family, they wanted Spencer to stay in the home and be there and have things be as normal as possible, and for him not to experience being uprooted on top of losing his father.
Yeah.
So he stayed in the family home and continue to. So
Awesome.
yes, that was a gift and that was beautiful. And I think rightfully so, there was that period of time where my behavior was so questionable and that I was so checked out. The concern was like, what is she going to do? Because I
Mhm.
was almost like not reliable or predictable, and I wasn't communicating well. I had basically shut everybody out. And I was tossing around things like leaving, and because almost, gosh, I hadn't even really thought about this until you raised that question. But because of the legalities of it all and being on the defense, that's so interesting. Being on the defense, almost like getting my back up that, well, I'm going to start looking for another place to live. And I'm going to start, and Spencer and I are going to go and not even. being in a place where I felt confident enough to have the conversations
Yeah.
directly.
Yeah.
Like, so what's the best way? How do you want to proceed? Or just having normal adult conversations that are difficult.
Yeah.
I wasn't initiating those, nor did I want to have them. And I probably wasn't even approachable.
Yeah. Or
Oh,
even could have that adult conversation where emotions don't get in the way, but because it is practical, it is very practical, but for Spencer to be in a home where he was raised by both mother and father, and to be able to continue to cherish those memories that he
mhm.
had of his father in that home, and that could even be his home one day.
Yeah. And that's actually where it's going now. That's what it will be.
That's
Yep.
awesome.
Did end up
That's
staying
awesome.
here, and we do cherish the memories, and he cherishes the land and the things he and his brothers get to do back there. They're always together in the garage in the back. So it had such a beautiful ending. It really did, the way it is now. But I hadn't even really thought about the implications of what really came down to not being married, and how much it changed the whole trajectory of the decision making, the process, or piece that complicates things.
Yeah. Yeah. It does. I'm going silent right now because it's just like I don't know how to answer that question, except it is a legal system. And unfortunately, the legal system and our hearts don't mix, right? And yet we just pray and hope that the family of the individual who died, in this case, Alan, just honor and just love on you guys because that is so what's needed.
Yeah.
So let me ask this question because this is one of the questions I've been asking on the podcast, and that is how are you navigating with grace right now? And what does grace feel like in your body now that this has been 10 years, right? Has it been 10 years?
It's 10 years in January.
Yeah. So, what does life look like for you right now?
Wow. A part of me wants to say I wish I could change some of the way I handled and coped, and but then another part of me says that was all part of the learning. And
Yes.
yeah, if I had not made the mistakes or gone through some of what I went through, or I wouldn't be where, so it wouldn't have taken me down the path of
Right.
personal development, where I just met so many amazing people, and I was able to, I guess, first and foremost own the mess, own
Yeah.
my own my mess.
Yeah.
And that's powerful in itself, and that took a long time to own it and not be so ashamed and
Yeah.
embarrassed. And I made myself feel less than
Yeah.
because of the mess. And in the end, I ended up being so much stronger for it. It ended up
Yeah.
being my superpower,
Yeah.
because I feel like I'm a better mom,
Yes.
better, probably better than I was even before all this, because I've learned about presence, and I've learned about honoring whatever emotion comes up whenever it comes up.
Well, and our emotions and our feelings are sacred. And that's what I believe we humans have not been taught. And not that we need to be taught, but it's learning to remember because we have been so conditioned by society, by our world, but also by the people that raised us. But it's not a blame thing.
Mm.
There's no fault, there's no right or wrong. It's even what you said, the feeling the guilt of the mess. No, we emerge from our messes, and it's our messes that are our teacher. Alan's death was your teacher. Your family, the intervention was your teacher. There's such beauty in that. And it's for us to learn and to work on letting go of judgment and expectation of how things should be or what we believe. It's our beliefs that get us in trouble, if you will, because when we have a specific belief, we put ourselves in a little box and say, this is the way it's supposed to be, and I cannot go outside of the box. No, I am here to blow up the box. And when it comes to loss and grief, and but even life, period, because it's having that different perspective, that fresh perspective, that we do emerge through our messes. And our messes are our teacher, just like my son's death. Kenny is my teacher. Alan is your teacher. Spencer is your teacher. Karen, thank you. Thank you for sharing your heart, your story, and a little bit of your life with us. And I am grateful to be your study buddy.
I feel
And
so grateful to have had this opportunity, and I'm so grateful to know you. And I have so much respect for you as a human. I can't even tell you what an honor it was, even just to be here and have this conversation with you, because I think the world of you.
thanks, Karen. Sorry.
I hope people do get something out of this and realize no matter what the grief process looks like, there's no right or wrong, but that I hope people can realize they can come out on the other side and emerge from it.
I have no doubt this will be a very powerful, powerful message, because I just want even the awareness of those who don't know that because they're not married to start thinking about that, what that's like. It's like, this is the one hope I have. And the whole thing is, we cannot plan what's going to happen, but I'll just leave it up to God and the Holy Spirit that whoever needs to hear it will hear it.
This was a 6-2 studio production. Find us at six-two.studio for all your creative sound needs.